Welcome to our channel, where everyday stories turn into dramatic, hilarious, and absolutely unmissable moments. If you enjoy those tense but funny showdowns and love finding deep life lessons hidden in the smallest situations, then you're in exactly the right place. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss a single video, because every week we bring you real-life stories with unexpected twists. In the suburban neighborhood of Maple Grove, where lawns are neatly trimmed and white picket fences evenly separate each home, life moved at a peaceful pace, as if even time itself had learned to slow down. Neighbors knew each other by name, often exchanged smiles while taking out the trash or checking their mailboxes. Kids rode bikes under the afternoon sun, while adults sipped tea and shared stories on their porches. It wasn't quite paradise, but it came close, until Karen moved in. Karen wasn't like anyone else in Maple Grove. She arrived on a breezy Saturday afternoon, driving a blinding yellow SUV and hauling a stack of community rule boards no one had asked for. From day one, she made it clear she wasn't here to blend in. She went door to door, not to introduce herself, but to gently remind everyone that hanging a hammock on the porch might be visually disruptive. While longtime residents like Mr. Gordon at house number 16 lounged on folding chairs sharing life stories, Karen eagerly handed out flyers titled 10 Rules to Preserve Neighborhood Decency, authored by none other than herself. Her house sat right next to that of Logan Reed, a quiet man in his 30s who valued peace, simplicity, and personal space. Logan lived alone and treated his backyard like a sacred retreat from the world. Each morning, he'd brew coffee, check on his automated sprinklers, and read the paper beneath the shaded awning. It was a calm, orderly life where no one bothered anyone, until the day he noticed his outdoor faucet was running. At first, he thought he'd simply forgotten to turn it off properly, but after seeing the hose drip for 3 consecutive days, despite having shut it off tightly, Logan began to pay closer attention. One sunny Wednesday morning, with birds chirping from the treetops, Logan stepped outside and froze. There, on the other side of the white fence, stood Karen, casually using his hose to water her plants, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The hose snaked across the yard into her flower beds, and she hummed a nostalgic pop song, completely at ease. Logan politely asked, "Karen, are you using my water hose?" Karen simply waved her hand, replying with full confidence, "Oh, just a little. Water's a shared resource, right? It's just neighborly to help each other out." Logan stepped back, stunned. That wasn't an apology, nor even a request. In Karen's world, fences didn't mark ownership. They were just obstacles to be overcome with creative reasoning. He kept calm and gently explained that he wasn't comfortable with it, asking her to please respect his personal space. Karen gave him a polite smile and said she would consider it, and then, unsurprisingly, resumed using the hose the very next day. For someone like Logan, nothing was worse than having his personal space invaded, especially in such a blatant, unapologetic way. Karen didn't just trespass, she rationalized her actions with bizarre logic, as if people should thank her for her generosity. The peace in Logan's backyard was slowly being overshadowed by a strange, new cloud, shaped suspiciously like a stretched garden hose and a smile that said, "I'm being polite, so you can't get mad." That was when Logan realized, if he didn't act, Karen would never stop. And in Maple Grove, where everything once felt as still as a calm lake, maybe it was time to stir the water. After that first morning when she was caught using someone else's hose and still acted as if she were performing a public service, Karen didn't back off. In fact, she doubled down. What started as watering a few pots of orchids turned into dragging the hose all the way to the back fence to water an entire patch of freshly planted grass that seemed to thrive off Logan's rising water bill. On one occasion, Logan even walked outside to find his hose tied securely to a wooden stake in Karen's yard, as if it were some sort of shared utility. Logan wasn't the type to complain. He had tolerated the late-night construction noises when Karen remodeled her porch at 10 p.m. He had even listened patiently as she listed 12 reasons why other people's dogs shouldn't walk near her flower beds. But the hose, that was different. This wasn't just about a few drops of water or a lapse in etiquette. This was a systematic violation, a blatant disregard for someone else's boundaries. When Logan brought it up a second time, hoping to settle things peacefully, Karen placed a hand on her hip and said, "Honestly, Logan, I think you're blowing this out of proportion. Everyone here helps each other. Don't be the one who makes things awkward." That sentence sealed it. Logan realized Karen didn't just think she wasn't doing anything wrong, she genuinely believed he was the odd one out. In her mind, dragging a neighbor's hose across the fence to water her own garden was a symbol of neighborly cooperation, and anyone who didn't see it that way was selfish. Things escalated faster than anyone could have predicted. Logan started to notice that the hose was being used at times when he wasn't even home. One weekend afternoon, while pouring himself a glass of water in the kitchen, he glanced out the window, and there she was. Karen was washing her silver sedan using his water, with music blaring from a Bluetooth speaker strapped to a cooler. She was happily singing along to Dancing Queen, completely unfazed. Anger wasn't something Logan was familiar with. He believed most things could be resolved with kindness and the right words. But this time, he felt like he was living in a modern-day comedy sketch, where he was the main character getting drained, literally, by someone else's one-sided kindness. He began documenting everything, dates, times, even what the water was used for. Not because he planned to take legal action, but because he needed to understand the full scope of her intrusions. Soon, his notes became something like a journal. Tuesday, 9:13 a.m., Karen using hose to wash outdoor rug. Wednesday, 6:48 p.m., Karen lets dog drink from hose. The more he wrote, the clearer it became. This wasn't a case of occasional convenience. This was a pattern, a dependency. Worse yet, one Friday afternoon, Logan caught a small child, about 5 years old, presumably Karen's grandchild, playing with the hose, while Karen watched from the fence, grinning proudly. "She loves playing with water," Karen said, "and your hose has amazing pressure, Logan." That was the moment Logan truly felt like a character in a sitcom, the one who keeps getting pushed around in the name of politeness. And when the water bill for that month came in at double the usual amount, he knew the line had been crossed. Patience, no matter how deep, has limits. And somehow, Karen had found exactly where Logan's limit lived. There was no doubt about it anymore. The water war had officially begun. Karen just didn't know yet that the neighbor she thought was calm as a pond was about to become the first storm she'd ever face in Maple Grove. After weeks of quietly enduring and observing, Logan was no longer the man who stood by while his hose was being abused. He was done playing defense. It was time for offense. Not the explosive, dramatic kind, but something far more calculated, strategic, and honestly, brilliant. His first move? Installing a small security camera under the eaves, pointed directly at his backyard. This little device didn't just capture video, it recorded audio too. Within a few days, Logan had built up a library of short clips showcasing the absurdity of the situation. Karen singing while washing her car, her grandchild spraying water into the sky, the family dog chasing the stream like it was a game. Each frame was undeniable proof of how Karen's kindness was flooding across his personal boundaries. But instead of immediately posting the footage to the Maple Grove neighborhood group like others might, Logan chose a more entertaining route. He began modifying his irrigation system. With some DIY skills left over from his college engineering days, he installed a high-pressure valve on the outdoor faucet. The result? Anyone who turned the hose without adjusting it properly would be hit with a blast, strong enough to soak them head to toe in under 3 seconds. On the first day of testing, Karen did what she always did, casually walked over and tugged the hose like it was her birthright. But this time, instead of a gentle flow, she was met with a powerful jet of water straight to the chest. She shrieked, stumbled back, and nearly slipped. Her wide-brimmed hat went flying over the fence, and her blouse was instantly drenched. "What's wrong with this thing?" she yelled, retreating in panic. Inside the house, Logan took a calm sip of tea and smiled. But he wasn't finished yet. In the days that followed, Logan escalated his plan. He installed a motion sensor, programmed with a deep voice that activated any time someone touched the hose. So, the next time Karen approached, she was greeted by a booming announcement. "Warning! You are trespassing on private property. Your actions are being recorded." Karen screamed and jumped back like she'd seen a ghost. Her grandchild giggled, and the tiny dog barked furiously at the speaker. The whole thing felt like a comedy scene, only missing a laugh track. Still, Logan wasn't satisfied. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted a lesson she would never forget. Finally, he added one last flourish. A hidden water line leading from the hose to a custom-built sprinkler shaped like a panda wearing a construction helmet. The panda pointed straight toward Karen's fence, and when the hose was activated without permission, the panda would spin its head, flash a light, and spray a majestic arc of water into the air, like it was welcoming the intruder. The first time Karen saw it, she froze. For a few seconds, she just stared, as if the panda might actually speak. Then, without a word, she turned around, dragging the hose behind her, for the last time. Logan's counterattack didn't involve shouting, name-calling, or confrontation. He simply used intelligence, creativity, and patience to reestablish boundaries that had long been ignored. And for the first time, Karen, the self-proclaimed enforcer of neighborhood order, began to hesitate before stepping into her own backyard. Because now, she wasn't just facing a quiet neighbor. She was up against an automated defense system, locked, loaded, and ready to spray the truth in her face. Karen disappearing from Logan's backyard for 3 straight days was nothing short of a phenomenon in Maple Grove. And to many, it was the first sign that something wasn't quite right with the woman once dubbed the neighborhood's motion detector. But in this case, not right was very, very good news. After finishing his water defense system, Logan didn't boast or brag. He simply uploaded a few carefully selected, hilariously edited clips to the neighborhood's Facebook group, Maple Grove Neighbors, Friendly and Vigilant. The short video featured Karen getting blasted by surprise, the spinning panda sprinkler launching a perfect arc of water, and the booming warning voice catching her in the act. The clip was only 45 seconds long, but it went viral within the community. In less than a day, it racked up over 200 comments and hundreds of shares. The comment section overflowed with laughing emojis and remarks like, "Comedy of the year right here. Logan deserves an Oscar for that hose setup." Everyone instantly knew who the leading lady was. Despite Logan politely blurring her face, Karen's unmistakable voice gave her away. And then, the inevitable happened. Karen found out. One afternoon, while Logan was watering his garden with the automated system, his elderly neighbor Greg Turner from house number 12 walked over and patted him on the shoulder. "You know what? Karen showed up to the HOA meeting today. First time I've ever seen her not say a single word for 20 straight minutes." Karen, who once led those meetings with a clipboard and her self-authored list, 10 things to fix about Maple Grove, now sat hunched in the corner, avoiding eye contact. No one wanted to hear her complaints about fence heights or overly cheerful morning birds anymore. Her silence was a quiet victory for the entire neighborhood and the direct result of her next-door neighbor's creative ingenuity. Another resident, Cheryl Parker, even posted a photo of a handmade wooden sign she'd put in her front yard. It read, "There's no extra water, only boundaries that deserve respect." Beneath the post, someone commented, "I officially name Logan's setup the Karen Defense Protocol." The phrase quickly became an inside joke, tossed around whenever someone brought up privacy or property lines in the community. Karen never returned to Logan's backyard. In fact, she went so far as to install a makeshift privacy screen made from a canvas tarp, blocking her view of his yard entirely. A move that was part silent surrender, part desperate attempt to rebuild the very boundaries she had once ignored. The irony, the woman who once disregarded personal space was now the first to build a wall the moment she faced a little pushback. Logan, meanwhile, didn't gloat. He didn't mock. He just exhaled. No more mornings discovering a stretched-out hose. No more mid-afternoon car wash symphonies. And most importantly, no more being mistaken for weak just because he was quiet. What began as a small act of disregard had turned Karen into a living example of what happens when you cross the line. And Maple Grove, a neighborhood once too polite to say no, had finally found its reminder. Respect isn't optional. It's the glue that holds a community together. From that day forward, Logan's backyard hose was no longer the source of controversy. It became a quiet symbol of something the residents of Maple Grove had started to truly appreciate: personal boundaries. No one put up no trespassing signs or drafted new community rules, but there was a shared, unspoken understanding that small things, a hose, a fence, a simple nod before borrowing, are the foundation of mutual respect. Logan never tried to be a hero, and he didn't want to be one. He had simply done the most basic thing, protect his right to peace in his own space without feeling guilty or being labeled unfriendly. To him, kindness should never mean submission, and Karen, with all her chaos and overconfidence, had unintentionally helped him, and the entire neighborhood realized that. Interestingly, Karen changed after the hose incident. Not a complete transformation, but perhaps for the first time in her life, she began to think about consequences before taking action. Gone were the comments like, "You should plant shorter trees so they don't block my sunlight," or "Your wind chimes sound a little too spiritual." Karen still strolled through the neighborhood in her signature wide-brimmed hat and confident stride, but now she kept her distance, something no reminder or confrontation had ever taught her to do. One weekend at the local farmer's market, Karen happened to pass by Logan. She paused briefly, didn't make eye contact, and said, "That hose, it's got some serious pressure." Logan gave a small smile and replied, "Had to adjust it. Safety first, you know how it is." Karen said nothing, but for the first time, instead of a complaint or a snide remark, she offered silence. And in that silence, Logan heard something he'd never heard from her before, a hint of accountability. That was enough. The incident also encouraged other residents to look inward. Some began tidying up their fences, others cut back on loud backyard parties. No new rules were needed. The lesson was clear. Personal freedom cannot exist without mutual respect. Logan returned to his usual life. The hose remained in place, no longer a target, no longer a battleground. It simply stood there, quiet and unbothered, like the peaceful mornings Logan had always loved. As sunlight filtered through the trees and birds chirped from above, he sat in his familiar wooden chair, sipping coffee, listening to the gentle clicks of his automated sprinkler, the only thing now allowed to use his water without asking. He harbored no resentment, no intention to drag the war any further. What remained was a quiet satisfaction, that he hadn't stayed silent forever, that he chose cleverness over conflict, and that sometimes a little creativity is all it takes to restore order in the chaos around us. In the end, the story of Maple Grove wasn't just about a woman using her neighbor's hose. It became a metaphor for all the small things that carry big weight, respect, boundaries, and the consequences of ignoring them. Because, as Logan quietly realized for himself, some things can't be borrowed, like peace. And if you try to take it without knocking first, eventually it's going to spray back. And so, the story of the garden hose, a very memorable neighbor named Karen, and Logan's brilliantly creative counterattack comes to a close, but the lesson still echoes. Because in life, boundaries aren't just fences. They're about respect, the line between being kind and being taken advantage of. If you've ever had to grit your teeth and endure your own version of Karen, go ahead and give this video a like. For Logan, who spoke up for all of us with one refreshingly bold move. And if today's story made you laugh, think, or nod in agreement, don't hesitate to share it. Let's spread the message. Kindness doesn't mean silence. Lastly, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our real-life stories, full of drama, heart, and meaning. Because who knows, the next neighbor worth telling a story about might be just outside your door.